Zoe was so beautiful. She was blacker than the tape on my chest. Skin glowed, eyes glistened. But in her coffin, she didn't have that glow anymore. And that was in the 4th grade. You see, the Bronx was burning. When I say the Bronx is burning, I'm not talking about fire here, fire there. I'm talking about fires every single where. The reason for that is because Jewish landlords paid Italian mafias to hire Latino arsonists to burn down the families that were black.
Wow.
This is in the 70s. Check your history, you see it to be true. So what does a child see when the fires move all the neighbors out of the neighborhood and only leave the hood? It looked like a bomb had dropped in my community. As you were walking through, you would see desolation after desolation. Chars of human flesh burning is what you smell on your way to school. On top of that, we dealing in an era where right after Nixon left and filled our communities with heroin from the Vietnam War, you had dope fiends that would lean constantly everywhere you went. At some point, I used to bet my Jamaican relatives that was visiting that I bet you that person don't fall and the person will be leaned all the way over and all the way back due to the heroin and the morphine, and then they will snap back and rise back up. So what does a child see? They didn't ask to be in this world. They just landed in devastation. What happens when the politicians don't care? What happens when the police, who used to live in the community, ran out and stopped being neighborly and just started being hood? What does the child see when ashes upon ashes is floating in front of his or her vision on the way to school, and we're going to funerals instead of field trips because this person died in a fire, Carlos died in a fire, Ashley died in a fire, Jason died in a fire. My whole class is slowly subtracting because of fires, because of someone's greed. Those same fires, let me tell you why they happen. Those same fires happen because those Jewish landlords was able to double the worth of their property. If it was burnt down, the insurance companies would pay them double. So what they did is they ran and started building communities like Syosset, buildings like Westchester County, and start building that up, and just was continuing to be slumlords, and it was okay because the heroin was doing the job of being a sedative for the people. The cocaine that was running around by these drug dealers that was profiting from the heroin. The way that the mobsters and the Latinos and the Jews who were making millions were fleeing. Everybody just left the blacks alone. Now, I'm not here to cry victim. I'm just telling you that I was victimized. So in time, as the child is growing up in that environment, he starts seeing that the police are not his friends, because when the bodies start getting lined and chalked, the detectives show up, smoke cigarettes, drop the ashes on the body, laugh about it. So the kid knows, I can't run to the police in time of trouble. When the hard-working mothers is working 12-hour shifts because racism doesn't allow them to go up and climb the ladder and touch the glass ceiling. So what happens is those kids grow up parenting themselves. They grow up being their own after school and weekend babysitters. Babies are sitting babies. So what does that kid see? That I'm on my own. My mother is just a provider. She's not a parent. Dad is gone because welfare says if a man is in the house, we stop paying you to do nothing.
Wow.
Now, how appealing, what type of bait is that? How appealing is it for you to get paid to do nothing? So as the 80s start rolling in, disco starts fading out, we start hearing new tune in our village. We start hearing the sound of these bongo drums and these heavy beats, because after all, we from Africa. We coming from a place where the drum spoke hundreds of miles away to let them know what was coming and what was needed and what was necessary, and how we will all benefit from the sound of this drum, because we invented the original Morse code. So these drums that's in our DNA, we attracted to it. And the whites is calling it hip hop, not bebop, but hip hop. So now you starting to listen to this tune, you starting to listen to the orators, the poets screaming out about the desolation and the ashes and the drugs and the crime and what they have to do to survive. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. This is what we hearing, and we starting to move a little differently. And disco and the partying and everybody out is now we just talking and singing about survival. And part of survival is that you have to protect yourself. So poverty, what is it? It is a lack of resources. It is a lack of resources. It's not just financial. We're not just talking about not having money to buy nice things to impress people that you don't know and who don't care about you. We're talking about poverty, a lack of social wealth, a lack of sexual wealth, a lack of healthy wealth, a lack of academic wealth. So what does the child see when he has no resources? He has to defend. He has to protect. All of a sudden, the gun companies get to get rid of their surplus. And the movie industry, if you go back to what spaghetti westerns were, they were movies that were funded by gun companies to advertise the guns. Nothing different. It hasn't changed. So now we start watching movies like Die Hard, Scarface, that's describing our lives. And automatic weapons is introduced all over the United States of America. The AK-47, the Ruger 9mm, the Tech 9, the Imperial Uzi, the Scorpion 9mm that shoots 32 shots. You tell me, why would an individual in an urban environment need a weapon that shoots 32 shots or more? Because we start being programmed by television and the media. We don't pledge allegiance to the flag anymore in school. We don't say our prayers before we do our studies. The TV stops cutting off. We now have cable. And what happens in the 80s? The introduction of a politician who used to be a movie star. And he comes in, and we live in a whole new world of bling and razzle dazzle and shining and trading weapons for drugs, Iran-Contra fit. So now these weapons are coming into the hands of these young people because we are taught that there are a little bit of resources in this little bit of area that's devastated, where abandoned lots and pissy mattresses is all that we have. That's all that we afforded. We are told that you can't give them nothing because they'll tear it up, when in fact, it was Jewish landlords who paid Italian mafias, who hired Latino arsons to burn us down. Everybody who told us we couldn't have anything or would destroy what we have already was living a good life outside of this community. We are told that the police are not here to protect. If you had to go to the ambulance, you had to go to the hospital, don't call an ambulance, call a cab. It's gonna come quicker. So we are taught nobody gives a fuck about you. We are reminded by social service. They start shutting down all after-school programs, all police athletic league programs, all cadet corps programs, all Boy Scouts of America, because in the hood, we don't scout, we hunt. So what does the child see when he says, I don't have a parent to protect me. I don't have a police officer to protect me, but I could buy an old gun for $100 by just standing on a street corner and yelling 5-0, 5-0, which means short for the same media that was influencing me. Hawaii 5-0 was a police show and a nickname for us to say 5-0 the way this generation is saying 12. So with that gun in his hand, let me tell you what he does. He says, does it work? And he goes and bow, shoots at the clouds and becomes a cloud killer. He's shooting clouds all day long, going through the roof because the power and the force of that surge that's going through his body is telling him finally he can feel safe. Can you imagine your children never feeling safe, always feeling hunted, never feeling protected, always feeling marginalized, less than? And what does that produce? What that produces is a young man or woman who's used to coming from a tribe, who's used to being a part of a clique unit, who's used to needing for a family. What it produces is hopelessness. It produces misery. It produces anger. It produces a perpetual cycle of wanting and never receiving. That's frustrating. And in that frustration, will you think I'm soft? You think something is soft about me? And we go to our convenience stores and our smoke shops. They don't sell just cigarettes and lighters. They sell big knives that's called 007s, or Rambo is out. Let's all run out and go get a Rambo knife. For what? We're not cutting deer where I'm from, but we live in fear where I'm from. So this child is slowly turning into an adolescent who feels the power of that gunshot. And now it's, I want to see the destruction this bullet can do. How much power do I have when I'm seeing and feeling and living a powerless situation? I pick up that gun and I shoot a garbage can. Now I'm a garbage can killer. Now it's just too many rats and cats and stray dogs around us anyway, so their life is useless, and you start shooting them and they die. So now you see the dog suffer, barking out, crying out, and screaming out for his life until it's quiet. But it's nothing new because you heard people screaming in those fires. You've seen dope fiends overdose. You've seen pissy hallways, people taking the shit in the middle of your lobby. Muggings going on right in front of your face, shootouts going right in front of your face. Long lines going around the corner like it's for free lunch or somebody voting when they just trying to get some heroin. People try to get high to escape their lows. So killing that dog don't matter. Everybody around you is showing you they love to be dead. They are searching to die. They are hoping for it. Because whoever got the best dope is going to have the most bodies of overdosing, which means the dope fiend don't have to buy so much product of that garbage. They could go buy what's near death so they can stay high longer for cheaper. See the psychology? So the government is shipping it in because ain't nobody got planes where I'm from. And then they getting rid of the surplus of guns. Let them animals, them jungle bunnies, let them deal with it. What does that child see when he's an adolescent who everything he asks his parents for, they tell him, you better get a job, you better find something to do. But he live on a drug block that makes $1 million a week. Is he a product of his environment? No, his choices is going to have some consequences because he don't realize what's at stake yet. All he knows is right now, I'm tired of looking at apple turnovers and bagels and pizzas that I can't afford. I'm tired of seeing grown folks eating good meals and I'm always hungry. I'm tired of missing Christmas. I'm tired of just staying home on Thanksgiving. I'm tired of not being able to celebrate New Year's. I'm tired, and I can't sleep at night because there's war outside my window. So now, what does the child see? You don't matter. But when that gun go off, everybody pays attention. He picks it up and it goes from a dog to another human being that he wished they would. And oftentimes, when you deal with homicides, it's either somebody you know, somebody you close with, or somebody that you have some familiarity with. And at some point, the fighting stopped because they closed the boxing gyms. So now, why would I get sweaty? I'm going to just shoot somebody. And guess what happens in those environments? In that time of the era where there was no cameras, no internet, no social media, no cell phones. The police don't come when they are told there's a body laying on the street. By the time the detectives show up to put chalk around the body and a used white sheet on top of the body, there ain't no investigation, ain't no fingerprint kits, ain't no ballistics, ain't no forensic canvassing. There's none of this. It's just a nigga killed another day at work, and more job security so that the Irish and the Polish who invade the police force could get their sons, grandsons, and great-great-grandsons hired and have a pension, a mortgage, and a better life outside of the hood. They live in places where they have neighbors. So the kid says, I shot this person. There's not a manhunt. There's no police force looking after me. And if the person didn't die based on the street code, they didn't snitch, they didn't say nothing, oh, I just got away with it. Now all his friends are saying, he ain't no joke. He feels safe. He now has the same attention that somebody might have from Instagram fame. And then you mix crack cocaine coming in. And now college students are dropping out so they can make some more money, where I can take $20 and turn it into $20,000 in 2 weeks because they flooding the community with cocaine. And they're telling us our lives don't matter. So as time goes by, all these street entrepreneurs is listening to a new music that's saying, kill, 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 survive, 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 pick up that gun, be the one to have all the power that you can possibly have. So now you got money, now you have all the sex, you always feel you get to buy any food you want, you discover what Christmas feels like, what Thanksgiving feels like, all at the expense of your own community. And if you did it right, you moved out of the community and just fed off the community like the Jewish landlords, the Italian mafia, and the Latin arsonists. You learn by watching as a child how you must survive and navigate at the expense of your own people. You are rewarded for it. You know what a prisoner looks like? They look just like you. I want you to picture your community right where you live right now that you pay them high-ass taxes for. I want you to build a wall around them. I want you to realize how much you don't know the people that live there. You're gonna see a whole new side of them because now you gotta sleep closer to them. Y'all gotta survive together. The difference in the streets and prison is the same two blacks that was going to war with each other, the same two poor whites, the same Latinos that was going to war with each other, now double bunking, sharing the same cell. They're forced under conditions of survival to get along and be neighborly when the hood told them it was okay to fight for the crumbs that was there. So what happens to that child who grew up and thinks he's a man? He thinks because he was shooting people, beating up people, and making a little bit of money that he was an adult Actually, he thought he was an adult when he started doing adult things. From those adult things that was being done, everyone told him, especially if it was his mama's bills that he was paying, hey, little man. So now he's in an environment of all males. The conditions, the circumstances, the pressure, and the death he's going to see is going to determine if he's a man or not. Because there's a whole bunch of males behind the wall that ain't men. What we do in society, we forget. They tell you when you're in the streets and you running around and you choose to eat and you chose to celebrate Christmas and you chose to do better and you chose to live a better life, that you're going to die, you're going to go to prison, boy. What they don't tell you is that while you was in the streets running around, there was grown men taking a piece of a fence, taking a piece of a fan, taking a piece of metal and sharpening it on the floor, waiting for your arrival. Because you're going to be that kid that's going to walk into that prison and think you super cocky and you super tough and you can conduct yourself the way you did in the streets because you was not being held accountable. And that person that's sharpening that steel is just going to put it inside of you and maybe leave it there. Because they didn't tell you that you could go to prison and you can die in prison. They left that part out. They said, boy, you going to go to prison or you going to die. And after the crack epidemic hit and the politicians decided, good old Bill Clinton on his saxophone created this new laws that said, hey, we can build prisons and make them private. We can profit from this. All my construction friends can get the contracts to build private prisons. All my friends who have all the contracts to do anything that employ thousands of people, now we can take these poor white communities that used to be farms, because we send the farming overseas now. We stop the farming and we're going to drop a prison. And that prison is going to feed the next generations and generations and generations. But guess what? We need some bodies to go in those prisons. Because if they shooting and they killing and they dealing drugs, then let's put these animals in a cage where they belong. So now it becomes a business. So now one person can get caught with crack cocaine. Let me tell you the process of turning cocaine into crack. I'm a specialist at this. I am an expert. You take that baking soda and that water, and that baking soda, and once you start boiling, that baking soda is going to take the place of the garbage and purify that cocaine. And when the government gives the Colombian cartel the okay to build entire cities like Houston and Miami from their drug trade, and the government directly benefits, then you got a free pass to send the best cocaine in. Thank you, Pablo Escobar. You're going to send the best cocaine in to the worst environments because the people in the suburbs do the same amount of cocaine, but it's not going to be tolerated where they live. So when niggas is killing niggas over cocaine crumbs and you cook that and you sell it, it's still cocaine. But when the laws are changed and they say, hey, a person with a gram of crack is going to get the same amount of time as someone with 3 kilos of cocaine. Who's smoking crack? What community was subjected to crack cocaine? It's a clear policy of racism, discrimination, and customers for the prisons. Why is it a coincidence now that 1 out of every 7 black males go through the criminal justice system? Oh, we're not predisposed to going to prison. We wasn't born to be in prison, but it happened to my entire generation. And listen to this. The sentencing, they said, let's promote on the media that the country is out of control. Let's win presidential elections that the country is out of control. And let's lock them all away and throw away the key. 3 strikes, you're out, and all this stuff. So now they getting 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 78 years, 257 years in prison. What happens to that child? What happens to that person who all of a sudden went from adolescence to trying to survive to getting some crack money to listening to this music that I'm a killer and I can do it, I can do it, I can kill anybody, I'm tougher than tough, and then I'm locked up and shackled by the thousands. So then the prison population goes from maybe 100,000 to 2 million black men. What happens to the second generation, the child that grew up under welfare, whose parents never showed them the way? Kids will always do what you do. They may not always do what you say, but they will always do what you do. So now that woman and that female is saying, well, my mama was on welfare. I don't have no man here. I don't have no masculine dominance here or presence here. So now I'm going to start taking it on. I got these feelings of sexuality I'm not sure. And because there's a lack of men, these little boys are becoming sexual predators. And one of them may have violated me or did something wrong. So now I am lesbian. Not only am I lesbian, I am a man in the relationship. Happy Father's Day to me, because ain't no men around, because we all incarcerated, because it benefits somebody's political agenda. So now when that child, that adolescent, that so-called man touched that prison yard, he learns that he went to jail a couple of times because the lawyers got paid, the court stenographers got paid, the entire judicial system got paid every time he got arrested, especially the overtime that the police got. But finally, his luck ran out, and he's in prison. He's in this microcosm of society for over 15 years of his life. Many of them wasn't even alive for 20 years and got sentenced to more than 20 years. What do you say to a country that would take a 13-year-old and give him 75 years? And he never pulled the trigger. He was acting in concert. He was hanging out with his crew, and somebody did something and they all got to pay. So now when you get behind those bars, you get put into a cell. Every cell in your body starts shifting and changing. This cell therapy is evading your mind. You don't have the distractions of the music. You can't get high to chase your consciousness away and your true self that's talking to you to do the right thing. You can't get high the same anymore. You can't get lost in sex. All your addictions are being stripped away, and it's just you versus you. You start realizing that I made some mistakes. I cannot be confined. They treated me worse than a dog. Yo, CO, why you treat me like this? Because you didn't care about you. So don't ask me to care about you. So now this child that had a whole life of not being cared for, not being protected, not feeling safe, is in a smaller microcosm of that where every little thing is highlighted. And now all of a sudden he learns the ultimate respect because he watched with his own 2 eyes a grown-ass man take a piece of steel and stick it into another grown-ass man 70, 40, 20 times and left that man dead. When blacks kill blacks, it's not just one person that's impacted. Everybody that goes to a funeral is impacted by that death. His mama, his mama's mama, his aunt, his family, his community, his grandparents, his teacher, the person, his mentors, all of them is impacted by that death. But one thing is for sure, North America, when you don't care about you, you will learn that you will be a part of that prison system because it's big business. You will learn that you were never cared for, cared about, and they are profiting off of that. You will learn that they got to sell for you. And when they ain't got to sell for you, they double bump. And when there's still no room, they'll triple bump. It'll be 6 of you motherfuckers in one cell. The same 6 that tried to kill each other over crumbs in the street. Welcome to prison. This is your life. All your regrets, all your remorse, all your animosity, all is not forgiven. Nobody cares. Out of sight is out of mind. Your girl is going to be with your homeboy. The women that's getting incarcerated because they're big business too. Can you imagine 1,000 incarcerated women on a period at the same time? What that looks like? It's vicious. But they fall into big business too. You want to knuck if you buck. You want to go crazy. You want to pull guns out on people. They don't care if you're a mother or you're a father, you're a community activist. There's a cell for you because you just a name and a number. You are part of the big business. Volunteer, because there's a whole line of business that you could get involved with, and that's minding your business, handling your business, and not being concerned about other people who's not going to be concerned about you when you rotting and dying in that prison. Crime pays. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. See, it's very criminal to flood a community with drugs. It's very criminal to have surplus guns get into very poor communities. It's even more criminal to tell a woman what she can do with her body. What's worse is criminal acts that stop you from going to a voting poll, that stop you from being able to get resources, that stop you from getting fair housing. It's criminal to drive down the street and see homeless people, but because someone's policy, only the 1% will get billions of dollars. But in my community, instead of raising criminals, what's really there is opportunists, people who are hungry and they see an opportunity. They see the carrot dangling in front of them. So when that child is dealing with his frustration, his aggravation, and his hunger, when that adolescent is learning that he has some power by using a gun, when that adult who's just a male but think he's a man, or just a female and think she's a woman because they're doing adult things, when they see an opportunity to make life easier, better, filled with hope, and escape from their community, we jump at it, as you should. However, what everyone must always consider in everything you do is there are some consequences to your thought pattern. The things you tell yourself has some consequences. When you take an action, there's some consequences. You have to evaluate before you make a move in life, any move in life with a person, place, or thing, is what's at stake here? What do I stand to lose or stand to gain? And is it worth the consequence? And at the end of the day, you have to always remember the choice is yours. If you don't care about you, there's millions of people that get paid to not care about you, off of you. So the reason I named this Pain Ain't Cheap is because we pay a high price to destroy ourselves. When we talk about the poverty that we escape and come from, we must remember that there is a lack of resources in our healthcare, in our schooling, in our sex life, in our spiritual walk, in our religious acceptance, is a lack of resources. Can you only imagine what it is like to live in a place where there's no crime, there's no noise, you live in this community, everybody know each other because you have neighbors, not a hood? How do we aspire to turn the hood back into a neighborhood? Quite frankly, we just have to remember the consequences and remember the choices we make and remember what's at stake if we don't. If we don't embrace each other, if we keep mean mugging, we often wonder, how come prison is idolized the way it is? Because all these prisoners that went through, the 10 millions of people that went through prison during the 90s and the early 2000s came home and brought that culture to the streets. You want to know why people's pants are sagging off their butt? Because in some prisons, you can't have a belt. Why is it that we mean mug? Every time I see a black man, everywhere that I'm going and passing, we looking at each other on defense. How come every time it comes to food, we are addicted to sodium and sugar and subpar food? Can it be that the institutions is dictating our communities rather than the neighbors deciding how we gonna have a neighborhood? It starts with love. It starts with love. Simple love as good morning, good afternoon, how are you doing? Peace, my brother. Hey, black man, oh, you need a hand? And when that becomes a fad, when that becomes a TikTok challenge, when that becomes the new thing to do, care about your fellow person, you will understand that you are destroying the programming from the media. You know, the average child, by the time he's 18 years old, has seen in fiction, in a video game, in a movie, more than 1,000 killings. He or she will minimize the value of another human being unless other human beings touch them and see them and show them that they matter. It is not until we all start embracing this one fact that racism doesn't matter, that poverty doesn't matter, that political parties don't matter. What matters is how much love we're going to have for strangers. Because if we continue to raise generations that are repeating the same activities from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, the same group of people is going to continue to have big business and profit off of your demise. Have you ever found it odd that in a rap lyric, if you say kill a Jew, you're going to get canceled? If you say, I'm going to go out and do this to all these white people, you're going to have a problem? It is always people who are not the talent, who are not holding the mic, making the most amount of money. Same as in the hood. Same landlords that profited, same mobsters that profited, same arsonists that profited, that left the same group of people in the same condition, and those people have to come to the conclusion that it's up to us to save us. And I'm not saying division, I'm not saying segregation, I'm not saying all these petty little things that they throw out there to distract us. I'm saying love. I don't care if they white, they black, they other. Show love, but recognize that your pain ain't cheap. Somebody's making billions off of your pain. Well, we need to accept that there's a difference between a hustle, a job, and crime. Is a reason we call it a trap. It's a trap. But I know when you're hungry, you're desperate, you're feeling, and you're telling yourself, I'm on desperation mode, you grasp at whatever. You devalue yourself. But I promise you that if you dealt in crime and you dealt in drugs, you have a product. And with that product, you did some marketing. And with that marketing, you did some distribution. And you did some wholesale and some retail. And there's only two things and two ways in America to do business. That's either a service or a product. So you already got the experience. Use it in a legitimate way. Because when individuals could sit down and look at the opening bell of Wall Street, and by the time it closed, they made $20,000, it's because they learned a system, tested that system, saw how that system works, learned more about it, and repeated the same way we do crime, the same way we pick up those guns. They understand the value that money is freedom. They understand that no one really cares about you until you start caring about you. And when you care about you so much, it becomes a point that people will pay you for being you. So I ask you to start valuing yourself. If you are watching this, if you are understanding, what I described was the life of a generation. There's more in the book, Pain Ain't Cheap, coming soon. But what I described was an entire generation. You want to know why your hip hop is the way it is? You want to know why your style is the way it is? You want to know why the fads are the way they are? You want to know why the parents are the way they are today? Is because when they were raised in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, they are creating the products of the 2000s. And it's up to the younger people to say, I have to break generational curses by thinking about what are the consequences of my actions? What's at stake? And before I make that choice, before I really make that choice, how many people is going to be impacted by it? Because it feels good to look clean. It feels good to own a home. It feels good to be away from drama and crime and tragedies after tragedies after tragedies. It feels even better to be able to think about what you want to eat and go and get it, because there are millions of men who are incarcerated and women who are incarcerated who never get that chance. So many of you young people, when I go talk to you, I remind you that y'all older than me. I'm in my 50s. Y'all older than me because your lifespan is going to be shorter based on your choices, based on you ignoring the consequences, and based on you not evaluating what's at stake. And it ain't up to me to do it. It ain't up to one person, one messiah, one religious leader. It's up to us all to demonstrate love to each other. Money's going to be paid. Money's going to be made. People going to get paid. But your pain, it ain't never going to be cheap. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to thank everybody for showing up today. I thank you tremendously. I hope what I said during this screening is something that you walked away with and took something that will help save somebody else's life. If you need to feel important by adding value to other people's lives. That's all I'm attempting to do. And we have to do it through this media outlet. We have to do it through each other. And most importantly, we have to do it through love. God bless you.